Hello, everyone. Today is June 28. Thank you, everyone, for joining the meeting today. Please add your agenda into the meeting notes, so we will go over them one by one. First, let's look over the action item from the last week. The first action item, Robbie and Chris supposed to figure out the naming convention for the provider-specific repository and started setting it up. So Chris opened a issue for people like a 3A3 for people like starting the discussion. So there's 4 proposals so far, and looks like it's overwhelmingly like people like the idea using the class API provider instead of like others alternative like a agitator or computer provider or cloud provider. So I will wait, I guess, to wait Robbie and Chris come back to make some decision out of this. But is any discussion you want to have here? Any preference?
Yeah, I'll just gonna jump in real quick. So I think next meeting we should just get a formal thumbs up on the name, and then we have to go to the broader SIG and figure out how this whole process of getting new repositories is going to work moving forward. But ideally, we can pick that up on the next call. So if you want to assign an action item to me, that would be great.
Great.
Chris, do we have any concerns about, one of the questions raised in the issue is, what about providers which span clouds or multiple implementations of the same provider? Do we have any concerns about putting or occupying the Kubernetes SIG's namespace with providers that may not be maintained long-term?
I mean, I think we need to be kind of choosy about what gets a repo. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having more than one flavor of a Kubernetes cluster per provider or per use case. A great example here is like private and public topologies for AWS. Like, how do you want your network configured? There's 2 completely different ways of doing that using the same provider. In my mind, that would live in the same repository under the AWS controller. But I think we're just going to have to kind of cross each one of these bridges one at a time. And instead of using a 3-letter acronym that's relevant to the cloud, we can come up with a short name or some other name if needed for one-off use cases, downstream. But I think it's totally a pattern we could adhere to. Cool. Also, if anybody wants to take notes, I'm down to one hand right now.
Okay. I think everybody can take. I'm pretty slow at typing notes. Is Martin here? Okay. Martin is not here. Okay, the next action item is Robbie. Robbie told me offline he have done this, so it's comment. He added a comment to the PR about moving IP to spec, so people can take a look. So the next work action item about the PR auto resign. So any progress on this one?
I think Dim's volunteered to take a look at this.
Yeah, but is Dim here? No.
I do not. I don't not see them on the call. Let's punt until next week.
Yeah, next week.
Oh, speaking of next week.
Yeah, next week. Robbie also told me because next week, July 4th is a U.S. national holiday, so I guess we can. A proposal here is probably cancel next week. So is anybody any different opinion on that? No, I guess it's okay. It's yes. Okay. So no meeting next week. All right.
This next agenda item, I think, is like super quick. I hesitated even adding it. This week I'm super swamped. I haven't made as much progress on my skeleton or null providers I'd like. We've got people that have flown in from all over, and so pretty busy. But I just wanted to see if Daniel had any update on an SSH provider, and then I wanted to see where an appropriate place might be to document the different existing providers that are in progress. I can think of two places. One is this notes document, and another would be a PR check into the cluster API repository. I think that latter is a little more discoverable.
I'm working on the SSH provider, but it's not quite in a state where I want to open up the repo. It's not. It's still under active development. But I'd like to work with you and anybody else on either a skeleton repo or maybe a kind of document. I have some notes on my own, blockers that I hit, things around dependencies, etc. Those I think might be valuable. So yeah, maybe we can start a Google Doc. Would that work?
Yeah, Google Doc is fine. I think it's a good idea.
Okay.
So I think that's great for documenting like how to create providers. In terms of pointing people to existing providers, I would like to hear if anyone objects. I think it was hard for me to discover the in progress implementations. Like I asked around, and it was only after my third time asking that I got this list of 5. So, okay, I'll take that action item.
Yeah. In SIG AWS, we had a similar concern of just documenting all the different ways of deploying Kubernetes on AWS. And ultimately, the SIG decided to just propagate a list that was open source that people could PR to. So if we want to do that here, that seems reasonable.
Okay, the next agenda item is about the unified provider status for the machine and the cluster. So any comment on that? Robbie make a bunch of comments.
Yeah, I submitted this PR as I was trying to use both a machine provider status and a cluster provider status, and I was at the time I was looking at the way that the GCP deployer implemented encoding and decoding, and so my immediate takeaway was that I could do it the same way, but I would need to factor out the provider status into its own type. I think in hindsight, there are probably alternatives. I've sort of talked about it on the PR conversation between Robbie and myself. If anybody objects or could maybe point me to an alternative, I would appreciate it. But otherwise, it seems like it's maybe a reasonable thing to do in the same way that provider config went into its own type.
It's a good idea. Yeah. So you like can people like take a look at the PR and post comment? Okay. The next agenda item is about exposing the ECD like to the cluster. Whose PR is that? Carol. So is Carol here? Yeah. Looks like a bunch of comments, including Robbie make some comment there. I guess the action item is for Carol to resolve the comment and to continue the discussion. Okay, the next agenda item is Karen for his proposal to how to change the image version and in the process to make a separate PR or not. Karen? Karen is online.
Is he here today?
He should be, but it does not seems to be. Hey, Kenny, is Karen around? No? Okay, I think Karen is not here, but we can look at his proposal. So basically, the idea is to first build the dev image, and then after PR merged, and then make separate PR to update the official image. It seems pretty reasonable to me.
Yeah, I think we could do another call for review on this one, and if Karan wants to jump on later and give us any more detail.
Okay, so move next one, Daniel, about the dependency with the Kubernetes.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring up, I think this has been brought up on the Slack channel, right, that right now we have, so Cluster API repo has dependencies on the 1.9 Kubernetes release. I'm wondering if, what our plan is to move, as Kubernetes releases come along, do we want to establish some regular plan for moving our dependencies? And one motivation, at least that I have, is as I'm working on the SSH provider, I internally want to generate a kubeadm master configuration. Now so I have to have a dependency on the kubeadm API. And in my case, I would like to use kubeadm 1.10. So I have to generate this master configuration that's using the 1.10 type, but I can't because the SSH provider also depends on Cluster API, which in turn is locked on 1.9. So I just tried to sort of change the dependencies in the package or in the Go package file, and ran dep ensure, and dep complained, right, that because of the constraint of API server builder 1.9 that it couldn't move to 1.10. So that's as far as I got, and I looked and I saw that we have API server builder dependencies in the API generated code in the controller implementations, and that API server builder we depend on the very last release, which is this 1.9 alpha 4, and that was actually, I guess, the last release. It was the last commit. It was May 6th. So yeah, if anybody can add some context and give any comments on like what we want to do.
I think I first write the first version, put all the GCE provider and all the prototype generated using the API server builder, so I can make some comment here. So yes, the API server builder is not making a lot of new update, and probably it will not in the future. So I think we need to make a decision here. I can see a couple options. First is someone to update the API server builder, which to move to rebase to the 1.10 and the latest version, and regenerate all the container code. It's a lot of work. And another option would be maybe for the project at this state, we can just get rid of API server builder and don't use API server builder. And but this is also require a lot of boilerplate code and copy paste a lot of place. And I think none actually are ideal. So I love to hear any other thought on this. This is a real concern. Thank you, Danny, for bringing this up.
So one thing that would concern me a little bit is if you tie into a specific version of Kubernetes to generate the kubeadmin config, you're going to tie yourself into only being able to install that version of kubeadm. You wouldn't be able to, span different versions.
So if you're just generating the config, what if you generated it from a version container, so you could generate a container for each version of kubeadm? I don't know.
Sorry, not sure I follow, but maybe I can take that offline, maybe in Slack. But that's kind of it's related to SSH.
Yeah, I think that Daniel, this particular config, maybe there's a way to work around and maybe a better way to do it. But I think the concern in general is, I think, is a real concern. So there may be other issue, maybe related with this. They need to reference the latest, the different version of Kubernetes for new functionality or whatever. So, but if we stuck with 1.9, it will be an issue maybe sooner or later. So, I think. I don't have a good idea right now, but maybe that will be a topic. If people have idea, we can discuss it right now. Otherwise, we can maybe have a topic discussed for next week, next meeting.
Is Kube Builder an option? I know that it targets CRDs, so maybe it doesn't generate everything that we need, but
that's a good idea. Oh, you're already aware of Kube Builder. Yes, Kube Builder, I think is for longer term. We have discussion inside Google to say in the future we can move back when the CRD is mature, provide all the functionality. We can move back to the CRD based implementation. At that time we can definitely using Kube Builder. It will be a more officially maintained tool going forward. I think we don't have suffer this rebase problem with a particular Kubernetes version. I think that would be better. Yeah, but that probably take a while, I guess. Yeah. Okay, so any other agenda item people want to discuss?
So I'm new to this conversation. What exactly we are using the API server builder that are tied to a certain version? What the usage for that?
No, not the particular usage. It's the API server builder was bound into right now it's bound into Kubernetes 1.9. So because we are dependent on the API server builder generate a lot of controller code. So that's why dependency is there.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no particular reason we have to use Kubernetes 1.9. So.
Okay, thanks.
All right. So if no further, okay, go ahead.
I had an agenda item. Sorry, I joined late.
Okay, Karan, go ahead.
Yep, it is. I'll turn on my video. So we've been moving fast, I realize, and what we have been doing is changing the code either to add a feature or fix a bug, but at the same pull request, also bumping image versions. And what has been happening is as we have been debugging problems, trying to figure out what changes were rolled into one change, since the previous one has been a little difficult and required a lot of work. So I would like to propose a change to this where you can work on the same feature, fix bugs, whatever you want, but any image changes and any rollouts need to happen in a separate, isolated pull request. And maybe we can have a template for that. I'm not sure how to enforce it. But this will just make the history cleaner. So I guess my ask here is, if someone has a pushback against this, and second, if not, how best can we enforce this?
I think it's a reasonable request. Any thought on this?
Okay, so I guess for enforcement, maybe we can change the pull request template to have kind of a directive for both the reviewers and the contributor. I'll send in that change if no one has major problems with this.
Okay. Thank you, Karen. All right, so I think that we finished all our agenda. So thank you everyone for coming. See you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Bye.